If you didn't hear Geoff a couple of weeks ago, he was, of course, a familiar figure on Sky Sports for over 30 years, one of the founding fathers of Sky Sports Sport, and now you are the English football correspondent on CBS, you tell me.
That's correct. All things that's happening here and Europe as well is great fun. I'm loving seeing the game grow in America. I've been part of that scene for over a decade now, working for Fox and CBS. Yeah. I really, really enjoy it as well as other things I've got over here. Obviously, the Football Music and Me podcast. Really, you know, it's like Sean. You're the same as me. We've been in this game for a long time. Fortunate to have been in this game for a long time. And it's just something, there is always something new. There's never going to be a day where there isn't something to talk about in football.
No.
And there is no shortage whatsoever on this FA Cup weekend in football.
And a story dominating the back pages is Pep Guardiola's rant, and this is what he had to say.
I'm here to try to convince you, but guys, I'm right? So it's common sense. I'm not asking something special or privilege. No, common. Tell me, some of you are not agreeing with me. Even I don't complain about the schedule. We don't complain about the schedule. In 7 years, we play every 3 days, and we're at the last stages in every competition. These guys are an example. We don't complain. But I want to protect my players, because we start in a condition that was a risk for the injury, a risk for the health, a risk for many things. Because I know they don't care, but I care, as I am with them, and I want to protect them. About that, I have meetings. I don't want any more meeting. I don't go. Why? Because I have 3 days. I don't have time to attend meetings. I'm sorry. But they decide we will do it.
Geoff, we're getting quite used to managers complaining about times. It's becoming a bit of an old chestnut. But it felt like yesterday Pep took it to a new level. And if we look on the back pages today, it depends who you think he's blaming. So on the Mail on Sunday, it's Pep's blast at BBC. On the Sun, it's Pep's rages at FA chiefs. And I think the Mirror was somewhere in the middle, saying you rages at FA and TV companies. Now then, you are from the TV companies, worked for them for a long time. It's a popular complaint that it's the TV companies that dictate these kick-off times and mess up those big boys from the Premier League and spoil them putting in their best performances.
Well, I think there's quite a lot to unpick here as well. I thought Pep was actually quite measured. I did think he actually made some salient points in there. But as in common with a lot of these types of tirades from managers on kick-off times, he missed out one particular point. The broadcasters buy packages from the FA. These are slots that are sold. These are approved by the clubs. So what the clubs say is, you give us this amount of money and we will make ourselves to play on these days. Mm-hmm. So they've agreed to it.
Yes, but it's the BBC's choice about which of the two semi-finals they take, for instance, on Saturday night.
Yeah, but if the broadcaster feels they're going to get better viewing figures for that game or for whatever slot, that is their prerogative, which they will have taken into account when they made the financial offer. What I always say in these scenarios, has Pep spoken to his club owners? Did anybody ask Pep, have you asked your owners, why did you agree to this? Why did you put us in this situation? Has he?
Well, probably not.
Well,
I think.
Well, why not?
I don't know. You have to ask him.
Yeah, but I also do have sympathy for Pep as well. I'm not saying it in a hard-hearted fashion. You pays your money, takes your choice. I think he's right in a week where Manchester United and Coventry haven't played. Therefore, as close. Why not switch the game around? That doesn't seem unreasonable to me. So had that been communicated, if it were possible, and these things aren't easy, that the clubs who are in Europe in midweek should have the latter kick-off, that would be a sensible.
That sounds really complicated, though, for the TV companies who, as you say, want the best figures at the best times and the best matches.
Exactly. I just think it's unfair. Listen, I understand Pep. I understand what he's saying about his players. I understand all of those things, and I do have sympathy for him. But I do think it should be underlined that the clubs agreed to take the money for this broadcast deal, and that's part of it. So it was a possibility. It's like when Jurgen Klopp used to say about the 12:30 kickoffs. Again, I have complete sympathy for him playing midweek in the Champions League, and then at 12:30 on a Saturday lunchtime. But the clubs have agreed it in advance, and I also understand. Why can't you schedule us here? it's irrelevant who the broadcaster is. It could be the foreign broadcaster. It could be anybody. Whoever picks the game, they need to make a commercial return. They need to make it stack up for what they've paid for those broadcast rights. So what you've got here, you've got the football club's interests, you've got the TV company's interests, and you've got the fans as well, who quite often and quite say their thoughts are never taken into account. So we're forever going to have this problem until all stakeholders get round the table and say, OK, what is sensible? What is a sensible way forward here?
But I seem to remember quite some time ago that Vic Wakeling of Sky used explaining how you say plotting Premier League games at the start of the season, how you work out which date. You know there are going to be potential clashes even before you start the season, and that managers probably aren't going to be happy with certain matches at certain times. You know it, don't you? But as it says on the back of the Sun, you don't care. I mean, the companies don't really care about the welfare of players. They care about their kickoff slot, don't they? Their time slots.
Well, again, Sean, you've got to be slightly careful how you try and emotively load this in being anti-broadcasting.
I'm not anti-broadcast.
No, but you're
looking at it from the manager's point of view, I suppose.
Yeah, from a manager's point, look, managers are always going to have a different view on when is the ideal team to play, the ideal time to play, and the rotations. By the way, just as an aside, I thought fair play to Alan Shearer yesterday, who challenged Pep.
He did, yeah.
Who said, why not use your squad then? And in the week when we're talking about the FA Cup being weakened, about it being devalued, I loved Pep's answer. He said, no. I remember I did this against Liverpool and we were 3-0 down at half-time. So he wanted to put out... He cared about that game. He cared about the FA Cup yesterday, which in amongst all the, let's be honest, not exactly happy vibes around the FA Cup right now, good to hear. That was good to hear. And they did look shattered as well, let's be honest. They got themselves over the line. That's what champions do. But going back to your original point, if you're broadcaster, what would you say? We'll pay this money, but we're not necessarily going to get the top teams when we want them.
I'm disagreeing with you. I think you probably have to say to the clubs, well, OK, if you want to dictate kick-off times, we'll be offering you a little bit less in the future. And then you won't be able to pay your players vast amounts of money that you want to. And then they might go, maybe we'll have to have a rethink.
Exactly. It's not a case of me sat here saying, broadcasters should dictate everything. Of course not. And I've been on both sides of the fence. The travel for fans on a Monday night, for instance, it's always going to be difficult. It's nigh on impossible for some fans. You're not going to make everybody happy, not by a long chalk. And yesterday, Pep had... I didn't think it was a rant. I thought it was a considered, controlled and measured observation.
It was the interview. I mean, Gary Lineker actually had to say, I think it's our fault, Pep. When you do those ones, say, the 12:30 one or whatever, and you have to face the manager, and they're going to have a go at you for the kickoff time, how do you deal with that?
You just deal with it accordingly. I mean, I was sent specifically to one time because they said to me, we think Jurgen was set the kickoff pre-match about the lunchtime, about the kickoff time. You just have to front up, soak it all up, listen to the manager's concerns, be respectful to his viewpoint, but at the same time, put forward your side of the discussion. I mean, these things they're better off, if you can try and solve them off air, then that's great. But that's not always the case. And the managers are entitled to have their say. Jurgen's entitled. Pep is perfectly entitled to say.
You're not going to change it, though, are you?
No, not whilst the managers' employers agree. What do they say when they go to their chief execs? What do they say?
Well, no, you're quite right. I agree with you. Geoff and the broadcasters won, clubs nil. You're listening to the Sunday edition with Sean Custers and Geoff Shreeves on talkSPORT. We know
on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.